I used to believe humiliation had a sound, a particular pitch, a sharpness, a weight. But that morning, standing barefoot on the cold stone platform in front of the entire pack, I learned it also had a taste. Metallic, bitter, thick enough to choke on. The strength ceremony was meant for wolves who mattered. Warriors, hunters, high-born heirs. Not omegas like me. Definitely not frail, unnoticed, 19-year-old Ariel who couldn't shift, couldn't fight, and couldn't even walk through the training yard without being shoved aside like a shadow someone wanted to forget. Yet here I was, forced into the center of the arena because an elder claimed all pack members must present themselves. A convenient excuse for public cruelty? My knees trembled. My fingers wouldn't stop shaking. Around me, wolves smirked, nudged each other, whispered loud enough for the words to cut deep. She's too weak to stand. She'll faint before it's even her turn. She shouldn't even be here. They wanted the spectacle, the embarrassment, the reminder of where omegas belonged. Heat throbbed beneath my skin, rising like a fever. The world swayed. Still, I forced myself to stay upright, just long enough to prove I wasn't the complete embarrassment they believed I was. But my body betrayed me. Colors bled at the edges of my vision, faces blurred into smudges. The ground tilted sharply, and the stone platform rushed upward to meet me. Someone shouted my name. Someone else laughed. I felt myself falling. Air whipped past my ears, loud, cold, terrifying. And then, arms, strong, hard, unyielding. They wrapped around me seconds before the impact. Gasps cracked through the crowd like a lightning strike. I didn't understand what was happening at first. My mind was fog, thick and spinning, refusing to catch up. But then a scent hit me, deep pine, storm wind, iron strength, and something ancient that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff during a thunderstorm. I had never smelled anything like it, and I had never felt a presence like this one. My cheek brushed armor, my breath caught. The world steadied just enough for me to lift my head, just enough for my eyes, unreliable, glassy as they were, to meet a face carved from midnight and authority, the Alpha King, Roran Vale, holding me, a nobody omega who should have been trampled by the crowd before he ever stepped forward. Roran looked down at me, his expression unreadable, but something dangerous simmered under the surface, something that made the warriors nearest to him stumble back as if scorched. I tried to speak. A whisper, a protest, anything. Nothing came out. Roran's jaw flexed, his arms tightened, barely but enough to feel the difference. Pain thundered in my skull. The jeers of the crowd rose again, suddenly unsure. Why did he? Is she special? She must have bewitched him. No omega could. The noise faded. Everything faded. His scent wrapped around me like a storm-born blanket, pulling me under. My vision narrowed to a tunnel of black and silver. The last thing I saw was his eyes, storm gray and furious. Then darkness swallowed me whole. I woke with a gasp, not to the smell of dust and cold stone floors, not to the cramped omega barracks I slept in, but to warmth, softness, breathable air scented entirely with him. My fingers curled instinctively into the fabric beneath me, smooth sheets, luxuriously woven, nothing I'd ever touched in my life. Panic shot through my chest. I sat up too fast, head swimming. I was in a bed, a massive, dark-canopied bed, and the scent clinging to the blankets, the pillows, the air itself, was the Alpha King's. My heart pounded hard enough to bruise ribs. A shadow shifted at the edge of my vision. I turned and froze. Roran Vale stood beside the bed, arms folded, eyes locked on me with a focus that made breathing difficult. The most feared ruler in the region, standing 2 feet away from me, watching me like he had been waiting. His voice was low enough to rumble through the room. Who hurt you? His tone wasn't a question. It was an execution being prepared. And it was directed at me, the weakest Omega in the pack, who had fainted in front of everyone, and somehow awakened in the Alpha King's bed with his scent all around me. I swallowed once, twice, and for the first time in my life, I wondered if fainting hadn't been a failure. But the moment fate reached down and changed everything. The first thing I felt was heat. Not the feverish, dizzy kind that had drowned me in the arena, but a warmer, deeper heat, like sinking into sun-warmed water. Soft sheets brushed my skin. Silk. Real silk. My fingers curled instinctively, confirming the impossible. I inhaled, and the world tilted all over again. His scent was everywhere. Dark pine, cold wind, iron strength, and something ancient, like the moment before lightning strikes. It wrapped around me, seeped into my lungs, curled along my spine. I blinked hard, forcing my vision to steady. Not a dream. Not a hallucination. I was in the Alpha King's bed, still, wrapped in his scent as if I belonged there. A low breath, someone else's, shifted the air. My heart lurched. I turned my head and found Roran Vale watching me. He didn't stand like a king. He stood like a storm held barely in place, muscles tight beneath black armor, shoulders squared, gaze fixed on me with unnerving intensity. I scrambled back instinctively, clutching the sheet to my chest. My breath came out too fast. He didn't move. He didn't blink. He simply watched me reappear in consciousness as if every second mattered. His voice, when it came, was low, contained, edged with something dangerous. You fainted. I expected anger, disgust, annoyance. That's what I usually earned from alphas when I so much as existed near them. But Roran's tone held none of that. If anything, it held restraint. Concern disguised as command. Before I could respond, he added, "But that is not why you're here." My mouth opened. Nothing came out. The king's bed, his scent, his eyes, storm gray and locked onto mine. It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. I swallowed hard. Then, why am I here? He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he turned toward the guard stationed near the door. Out. The word cracked like a whip. Several wolves jumped. Some hesitated, until Roran's gaze snapped toward them. In an instant, every warrior bowed, scrambled, hurried out of the chamber as if afraid the air itself would burn them. The doors shut with a heavy thud. Silence settled. A silence filled with his scent, his presence, his focus. Too much. All of it too much. Footsteps echoed faintly from outside the door. Whispers carried through the corridor. Why did he bring her? She's no one. He's never done this before. It must be a mistake. Why her? Each word stung like a nettle pressed into the skin. Roran didn't glance toward the noise. He didn't have to. His authority spread outward like a pressure in the air, quieting the whispers even through the thick walls. Then his eyes returned to me, pinning me in place. "Does anything hurt?" he asked. My breath caught. Not because of the question, but because of the way he asked it. Slow, controlled, like he was fighting something inside himself. "No," I whispered. A lie. Everything hurt. My pride, my body, my memories, my fear, my confusion. But admitting pain felt like giving more power to the ache already swallowing me. He stepped closer. The mattress dipped under his weight as he sat at the edge of the bed, leaving just enough distance not to overwhelm, but close enough that the warmth from him reached me, chased the cold out of my fingers. His hand lifted, hesitated, then touched the side of my face with the gentleness of someone who knew his strength could shatter bone. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. Slow, controlled. "You fell harder than they realize," he murmured. My heart hammered. "Why? Did you catch me?" I whispered. There it was. The question that had been clawing at my chest since the moment my vision faded in the arena. Alphas didn't touch Omegas. Not like that. Not in front of the entire pack. Roran's jaw tightened. His nostrils flared. For a moment, he said softly, dangerously. My wolf reacted before I did. My breath froze. Reacted? To me? Impossible. Omegas like me were invisible, forgettable, easily replaced, easily ignored. But the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in the room, sent a shiver through my bones. I pulled in a shaky breath. Your scent, I whispered. It's everywhere. His eyes darkened. Not with anger, with something deeper, something primal. He leaned in just a fraction. I brought you here because it was the only place your body stopped trembling. My lungs tightened. My chambers calm my wolf, he continued quietly. And, for some reason, they calm yours too. The world spun. Not from weakness this time, but from the crack of revelation splitting open inside me. Connection, instinct, bonding. Nothing made sense. Everything made sense. I clutched the sheets tighter, my pulse frantic in my throat. Roran, I breathed, barely a sound. His answer was a vow, low and unmistakable. You are not here by accident, Ariel. And for the first time in my life, an alpha's eyes didn't look at me with contempt, but with fate. If waking in the Alpha King's bed was surreal, being pulled from it minutes later and marched through the palace corridors was worse. The walls were too tall, the floors too polished, the torches too bright. Every echo of my footsteps felt like a reminder of where I didn't belong. Roran walked ahead of me with long, purposeful strides, silent but radiating a heat that made warriors flatten themselves against the walls as he passed. No one dared address him. They stared at me instead. Confusion, suspicion, disgust, all blended into a single, suffocating weight pressing on my lungs. Finally, he stopped before the healer's wing. Inside, he ordered. I obeyed. The moment I stepped through the door, the air changed. Sterile, cool, humming with magical wards I didn't understand. The healers, robes white as bone, eyes sharp and critical, turned toward me and began whispering. She looks malnourished, too thin, too pale. She has no wolf scent. She'll never shift. Her body is too fragile. Each sentence felt like a blade pressed against my ribs. I lowered my head, my hands curled into fists at my sides, not in defiance, but to hide the tremor. Roran stood beside me, silent as a sharpened blade, but the tension rolling off him made the room colder. One healer approached, his fingers grazing my wrist as if I were a specimen, not a person. No muscle tone, he murmured. Exhaustion lines, dehydration, inability to regulate temperature. Another added, almost gleefully, Omegas like her rarely survive winter. Their words didn't surprise me. I had heard versions of them all my life. Still, each one stung. One healer finally looked up at Roran, shrugging. She collapsed because she is weak. The king's jaw clenched so hard I heard the faint crack of bone shifting. His voice was soft, but deadly. No. What caused her collapse? The healers blinked at each other, unsure how to speak in the presence of a king whose patience was razor thin. I swallowed, throat burning. My voice came out small. I haven't eaten. Silence fell so heavy I thought I would suffocate under it. Roran turned to me slowly, his eyes darkening like a storm rolling in. Why? I hesitated. His stare sharpened. Ariel, answer me. I inhaled shakily. Omegas are fed last, I whispered. And by the time I reached the hall, there was nothing left. The room tilted with shame. I couldn't bear to look at him. A low growl rippled from Roran's chest, quiet but deep enough to vibrate through the stone floor. The healers stiffened. One stepped forward, trembling, My king, the feeding order is tradition. Tradition, Roran cut in, does not justify starvation. His voice didn't rise, but it thickened like thunder about to strike. A second healer rushed to speak. Most Omegas do not complain, they adapt. Adapt? Roran's head snapped toward him. To being denied basic necessities? The healer froze. I meant no disrespect. My king. You meant every word. Roran snarled softly. And you will answer for it. A hush spread like frost over the room. He stepped closer to me, positioning himself between my shaking form and the semicircle of healers. The gesture was subtle, but unmistakable. He was shielding me. From ridicule, from scrutiny, from the court itself. I felt a tremor rise in my throat. No one had ever stood in front of me. No one had ever blocked the world from tearing into me. Not a guard, not an elder, certainly not an alpha king. Roran lowered his voice as he turned to me. When was your last full meal? I swallowed. 2 days ago. Something in his expression cracked. Not anger. Something deeper. Something that looked disturbingly like guilt. He exhaled slowly, controlling himself with visible effort. That will never happen again. I blinked up at him. He meant it. I felt the truth in my bones. Roran stepped toward the healers. His voice was ice. You will prepare a full examination, blood, bone, magic levels, and you will treat her with care. If any of you speak of her as less than the wolf she is, I will personally remove your tongues. Gasps fluttered like moth wings. He turned to me again. You fainted, he murmured, softer, because the pack failed you. Shame burned hot in my chest, but beneath it, something new stirred, something fragile, trembling, impossible. Protection. Not from a healer, not from a guard, from a king. Roran stepped closer, his voice dropping to a vow shaped by instinct. You are under my watch now, Ariel. No one starves you again. And in that moment, despite the cruelty surrounding me, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I thought I could stand. Truly, I did. The healers had finished their poking and prodding, muttering theories as if I couldn't hear them, as if my body was a puzzle and not a person. Roran remained beside me the entire time, silent and simmering, every muscle in his body pulled tight like a bowstring. So when they finally stepped back and announced, "She may rise," I forced myself upright before he could offer help. Didn't want to look weak. Not more than I already had. My hands braced against the table. My legs trembled. The floor tilted just slightly. I pushed anyway. One step, then another. But my knees buckled. The room lurched toward the ground, and before fear could even register, strong arms wrapped around me again. My breath left my lungs in a soft shock. Roran, his chest pressed against my shoulder, solid and unyielding. His scent, pine, metal, storm wind, engulfed me with dizzying intensity. But it wasn't just that. It was the sound. A low, primal growl rolled through him the moment I stumbled. Not anger, possession, instinct, recognition his mind had not yet named. He held me so tightly I felt the tremor in his arms. Easy, he murmured, voice roughened. I have you. The words sank under my skin like a brand. I tried to pull away, out of embarrassment, out of fear of being seen in his arms, but his grip only tightened. My king, a healer stammered. We can assist. Roran's head snapped toward him with a snarl so sharp the torches flickered. No one touches her. The growl under his voice was unmistakable now, his wolf pressing against his skin, reacting to me like a force unleashed. I froze. Why? Why me? Why this? Roran inhaled sharply near my hair as if scenting the air around me, and another growl rumbled through him, deeper this time, vibrating into my ribs. Something was happening inside him, something that frightened even him. I shouldn't be reacting like this, he muttered under his breath, more to himself than me. Reacting. To me. My heart hammered. Before I could find my voice, he swept me into his arms. Effortless, instinctive, thoughtless. A full lift, cradled against his chest. I gasped, hands flying to his armor, my fingers curled on their own. Roran. He didn't stop. He didn't slow. He turned and strode out of the healer's wing, carrying me as if I weighed nothing. Gasps echoed down the corridor. No one was ever carried by the king. Whispers erupted instantly. She's still alive? Why is he holding her? Has he lost his mind? Look at his eyes. They're glowing. Is she his? Roran didn't hear them. Or maybe he did, and he simply didn't care. His arms were iron around me, not cruel, but protective in a way that made my throat tighten. Put me down, I whispered weakly, humiliated and terrified and confused all at once. He didn't. Instead, he adjusted me so my head rested just beneath his collarbone, where the heat of his skin throbbed through the layers of armor. My wolf won't calm unless you're close, he said, voice low, strained. I stiffened. That doesn't make sense. Yes, he agreed quietly. It doesn't. We reached the palace's upper hall, where guards knelt automatically as we passed. Their eyes widened at the sight of me in his arms. One dropped his spear in shock. Roran's steps never faltered. He pushed open the carved iron doors to his private chambers with a single kick. The moment we crossed the threshold, something in him eased. His shoulders lowered. His breathing slowed. His wolf, whatever storm had been clawing beneath his skin, settled. Just from being in the same room. He set me gently on the bed, the same bed I'd woken in earlier, his hands lingering longer than they should have, fingers brushing my waist as if reluctant to let go. I swallowed hard, cheeks burning. Why? Why do you keep helping me? I whispered. Roran didn't answer immediately. He stepped back, dragging a shaky hand through his hair, exhaling like a man fighting a war inside himself. Finally, he looked at me. Not like I was an omega, not like I was a burden or a mistake, but like I was something he had no defenses against. I don't know, he said softly. His voice vibrated through the room. My instincts are reacting to you in ways they never have. My wolf? He exhaled, frustrated. He wants you close. He calms when you breathe. He rages when you stumble. This shouldn't be possible. My stomach tightened. And you? I whispered. He held my gaze. I can't stop touching you. The confession shocked even him. Silence pressed into the space between us. Something fragile, something dangerous, something beginning. And though neither of us could name it yet, a bond had started forming the moment he caught me. I don't know how long I sat there on the edge of the Alpha King's bed trying to steady my breath while Roran paced like a caged storm in front of me. Every time his eyes flicked toward me, something in him tightened. Like he wasn't just watching me. Like he was tracking me. I didn't understand it. Not his instinct. Not his wolf. Not his words. But the knock on the chamber doors snapped the tension like brittle glass. Enter, Roran commanded. The doors swung open, and an elder stepped inside, robes trailing, hair silver, eyes sharp enough to slice through bone. Elder Myris. I had only ever seen him from a distance. Wolves whispered about him with equal parts reverence and fear. He was the oldest living moonseer, the last to have witnessed the coronation of the moon-blessed queen herself. So when his gaze fell on me, it was like being pinned under an avalanche of centuries. He didn't speak at first. He inhaled, slowly, deeply. And then the blood drained from his face. Roran stiffened. What is it? he demanded. Elder Myrus didn't answer. Not right away. He took another step toward me, his nostrils flaring faintly, eyes widening with every breath. He looked horrified. My stomach dropped. I don't know what you're sensing, I stammered, but I promise I haven't done anything wrong. Wrong? Myrus whispered. Child, do you not feel it? Feel what? His hand shook as he raised it, not to touch me, but as if warding off something too bright to face directly. Her scent is shifting. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. Roran moved closer, instantly alert. What do you mean shifting? The elder swallowed hard. Moonlight, he whispered. Ancient moonlight, power buried so deep it sleeps beneath the skin. Roran's eyes snapped toward me, jaw locking. I flinched under both of their stares. I don't have power, I stammered. I barely have a wolf. But Elder Myrus shook his head slowly, as if the world itself had tilted. No, you have a wolf. He leaned in slightly. And she is beginning to breathe. My breath caught. Roran's hand brushed my shoulder, subtle, grounding, too gentle for a king known for his ruthlessness. What exactly are you sensing? He demanded again. Myrus closed his eyes for a moment, inhaling deeply. When he opened them, they shimmered with something like awe and fear. The last time I sensed this scent, he paused, voice trembling, was when the moon-blessed queen was alive. Silence cracked open between us. My mouth went dry. What? I whispered. Myrus didn't blink. The queen who united the clans. The queen whose very presence calmed storms and stirred wolves to kneel in reverence. His voice softened. The queen who died before you were born, leaving no heir. My lungs constricted. Roran stood perfectly still, too still, as if the air around him had solidified. Myrus, he said slowly, choose your next words carefully. The elder nodded, understanding the warning, but his attention stayed on me. Ariel, he murmured, your scent is no longer merely Omega. I shook my head. That's impossible. It is ancient. He stepped closer. It is dormant moon power, and it is awakening. Roran inhaled sharply. A muscle ticked in his jaw. That's not possible either, he growled. Moon blessing vanished when the queen died. Yes. Myrus's voice dropped to a whisper. Which is why this is troubling. Troubling. Everything in me spiraled. I clutched the blankets beneath my hands. Why would I have anything to do with her? Myrus's gaze softened with something like pity. Because fate does not ask permission, he murmured. It simply arrives. A shiver raced down my spine. Royal, ancient, moon-blessed. None of those words belonged to me. I was the Omega who fainted in front of the pack, the girl who slipped through cracks, the one wolves didn't even bother remembering. I had no royal blood, no significance, no destiny. But Myrus stepped back and bowed, as if he stood before someone far more important than me. Your power is waking, he said quietly, and the kingdom will feel it. Roran didn't bow. Roran never bowed. But he stared at me like he was seeing something he could not reconcile, something that frightened him more than war or prophecy ever had. Slowly, he spoke. If what the elder says is true, then the world you knew is gone. I swallowed hard, fighting the rising panic. What does that mean? I whispered. He held my gaze. It means, he said quietly, that fate may have chosen you. A tremor passed through the room. Or through me. I couldn't tell which. But I felt it. The first stirrings of something not weak, not invisible, not small. Something ancient, something royal, something waking beneath my skin. And Roran's expression, A storm shifting direction told me he felt it too. The moment Elder Myrus left the chamber, murmuring something about preparing the moon seals, I knew trouble was coming. Roran knew it too. He stood rigidly beside the window, jaw clenched, fists tight. Every part of him braced for impact. His wolf pressed so close to the surface that the air felt heavy, charged with static, like a storm waiting to break. I sat on the edge of his bed, trying not to tremble, trying not to breathe too loudly, trying not to exist too loudly. But the knock on the chamber doors was not soft. It was not polite. It was not respectful. It was a demand. Roran's head snapped toward the sound, eyes going cold. Enter. The doors burst open before the word finished leaving his mouth. Not guards, not healers. Nobles, draped in embroidered cloaks, their noses lifted like they were smelling something foul, their eyes sharp with judgment. They didn't bow. Not to Roran, and certainly not to me. The tallest one, a man with hair like polished iron and a permanent sneer, spoke first. "My king," he said tightly, "we request an explanation." Roran didn't move. He didn't blink. "And why?" he asked, voice dangerously quiet. "Do you think you are owed one?" The noble faltered but continued, righteous indignation swelling. "You brought an Omega into the royal chambers." Another added sharply. "A starving one, a weak one." A third sneered openly at me. "She is a liability." My fingers curled around the blankets. I tried to shrink into myself, but their eyes followed every movement. "And worse," the first noble hissed, "she appears to have influenced your wolf, bewitched him." A wave of heat crept up my neck. Bewitched? Me. I could barely stand without help. Roran stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately. The nobles stiffened as he approached, but none retreated. He stopped directly in front of them, shoulders squared, voice ice cold. "Speak carefully." But the iron-haired noble only raised his chin higher. "We ask that she be removed from the royal wing," he said, "for the safety of the pack." A chorus of agreement followed. "She shouldn't be here. She's dangerous. She's trying to manipulate you. She smells unnatural. Something is wrong with her." Each accusation struck like a slap. I lowered my gaze to hide the sting in my eyes. Roran noticed. His growl thundered through the room. Not a warning growl, a lethal one. The nobles stiffened, finally realizing they were poking a beast that did not tolerate disrespect. Roran took one step closer, his voice dropping to a murderous whisper. "My wolf chooses who he protects." The room went still, utterly still. Every noble inhaled sharply. One took an involuntary step back. Roran's wolf surged, its presence slamming into the air so hard my skin prickled. The torches flickered. Shadows trembled. He continued, voice vibrating with barely contained instinct. "No council, no court, no noble decides that for me." His gaze flicked toward me for the briefest heartbeat, just long enough to see the trembling girl on the bed, and something raw moved in his expression. The nobles saw it too. Panic flashed in their eyes, not because of me, but because the king, the cold, unshakable, battle-forged king, was reacting to me in ways he never reacted to anyone. The iron-haired noble's voice cracked. She is affecting you." Roran bared his teeth. "She is under my protection." A silence fell so heavy the air thickened with it. No one spoke. No one dared. For the first time in my life, someone stood between me and the world. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but out of instinct. The noble tried again, weaker this time. "But my king? Do you question me?" Roran growled. The man dropped to his knees. "No, my king." Roran let the silence linger, crushing them under it. Then he turned slightly, his body angling toward mine in a subconscious gesture of claim, of shield, of possession his mind hadn't caught up to yet. "Leave," he commanded. It wasn't a shout. It was a sentence. The nobles bowed so fast their cloaks nearly tripped them as they fled from the room. The doors slammed shut. Silence filled the space again. But this time, it felt different. It felt like the aftermath of lightning. Roran exhaled, slow and controlled, then turned toward me. His eyes, still storm gray, still tight with fury, softened just slightly. "You are not a liability," he said quietly. "Not to me." My throat tightened. "Why are you defending me?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. He stepped closer, stopping at the edge of the bed. His wolf brushed against me. Just a faint pull, a strange warm tug deep in my chest. Roran noticed it too. "That," he murmured almost to himself, "is what I intend to find out." The room was still, the air thick with unspoken things. Prejudice, challenge, and the first undeniable spark of something beginning between a king who didn't bend and an omega fate refused to let him ignore. I needed air, space, distance from the storm swirling around the Alpha King's chambers. After the nobles left and the echoes of their outrage faded down the hall, the room seemed too small, too charged, too saturated with his scent and intensity. My pulse wouldn't slow, my hands wouldn't stop trembling. Roran stood near the window, shoulders stiff, his wolf pacing beneath his skin. I could feel the tension radiating off him in waves, dangerous, fierce, razor sharp. I couldn't breathe under the weight of it. So I whispered the only thing I could think of. I need to go." His head snapped toward me. "You're not well enough." "I'll be fine," I lied, forcing a weak smile. "You collapsed hours ago." "It was just hunger." His jaw clenched. "You are not leaving this room." The words should have infuriated me. Instead, they pierced straight into the hollow place inside my chest, the place that had never once been protected, never once been wanted. But I couldn't stay. Not while his wolf paced like it was reacting to me. Not while his gaze kept drifting to me with a heat he didn't understand. So I stood anyway. My legs wobbled, but I forced myself upright. Roran took a half step forward, as if preparing to catch me again, but I steadied myself on the post of the bed. "I'll just go to my quarters," I whispered. "Your quarters are unsafe," he growled. "Nobles hate you. You aren't leaving." "Roran," but I didn't let him finish. I turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. My heart hammered in my chest, louder and louder like a warning drum. I didn't know what I expected. For him to stop me? For him to let me go? For nothing at all to happen? But the moment my fingers touched the door handle and my foot crossed the threshold, a sound split the room. A raw, tortured snarl. I whipped around. Roran had dropped to one knee, hand pressed to his chest, eyes blazing with pain so sharp I felt it like a physical strike. His breath came out ragged. "Don't," he choked. I froze. The healers, who had been lingering down the hall after the noble's outburst, rushed in. One gasped. "His chest! It's locking. It's a scent reaction." "What's happening?" I whispered. But none of them looked at me. They stared at Roran, and then at the space between us. The distance. One healer, an older woman with trembling fingers, lifted her hand to her mouth. "Oh, Moon," she whispered, "you're scent bonded." The world stopped. Scent bonded. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. "What does that?" I began. But another healer cut in, voice barely above a breath. His wolf imprinted on her. Imprinted. My knees went weak. I staggered backward, gripping the wall as the room tilted. Roran's head snapped up, eyes wild. "That's impossible," he growled. Your wolf thinks otherwise, my king, the healer whispered. The imprint has taken root. The words felt unreal. Wrong. Impossible. Roran Vale did not imprint. He did not bond. He did not form attachments. He was carved from iron and winter, untouched by weakness, unmoved by emotion. But right now, he was trembling. Because I had taken one step away. He pushed himself to his feet, chest rising and falling in harsh, painful breaths, every muscle shaking with the effort. Come back, he rasped. It wasn't a command. It was a plea. A plea from a man who didn't beg. My body moved before my mind did. One step back into the room. The pain in his chest eased instantly, visibly, brutally. He exhaled, shaking with relief. The healers gasped. The bond stabilizes when she's near. I swallowed hard, throat closing. This couldn't be happening. I wasn't meant for anyone, let alone a king. Least of all this king. Roran, I whispered. I didn't do anything. I know, he said, voice raw. His wolf wasn't something he could control. It was primal instinct, older than logic, older than kingship, older than him, older than me. One healer bowed his head. The moon blessed often imprint the moment their power awakens. It is ancient magic, fate magic. Fate. The word sliced through my mind, sharp and terrifying. Roran stared at me, really stared, like he was seeing me for the first time, like the world had shifted under his feet and he was trying to find steady ground. This bond wasn't supposed to happen, he said quietly. I exhaled shakily. I know. He stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat from his skin, close enough that his scent wrapped around me again, close enough for my wolf, my barely there, half-asleep wolf, to stir beneath my ribs. He swallowed hard. But it did. Silence stretched between us, thick and fragile. We can't be apart now, he said softly. Not without pain. My breath hitched. But I don't understand why, I whispered. His gaze locked onto mine. Neither do I, he said. Then his voice dropped, low and dangerous. But I intend to find out. Roran didn't let the healers bring my food. He didn't summon servants. He didn't call guards. He left the room himself and returned, carrying a tray. The Alpha King, the man feared across 5 territories, the ruler who commanded armies, the wolf who could bring an entire pack to its knees with a single growled command, walked back into his chamber with food in his hands and set it in front of me like it was sacred. I stared at the tray. Warm stew, fresh bread, roasted vegetables, a pitcher of water. Food I had only smelled drifting through the hallways, never tasted. Food that wasn't scraps, or leftovers, or cold rinds tossed in my direction. Food meant for wolves, with names, positions, worth. Not an Omega who fainted in front of the entire pack. He pushed the tray a little closer. Eat. I swallowed hard. My fingers trembled as I lifted the spoon. The first bite made my chest tighten unexpectedly. It was warm, real, alive. Something inside me, the part that had grown used to being overlooked, ignored, unseen, cracked so sharply I had to blink fast to hide it. Roran didn't speak. He stood in front of me, arms crossed, gaze fixed on me like this moment mattered more than battles and borders. When I finished half the bowl, he sank into the chair across from me, leaned forward, and spoke softly. Tell me. I froze. Tell you what? I whispered. His eyes, storm gray and unbearably intense, held mine without blinking. Tell me who starved you. My breath stuttered. He wasn't asking out of curiosity. He was asking as a promise. Roran. It doesn't matter, I whispered. His jaw flexed. It matters to me. My fingers tightened around the spoon until my knuckles whitened. It's just how things are for Omegas, I murmured, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. We eat after everyone else. Sometimes there's food left. Sometimes there's not. His fists clenched on his knees. Who made that rule? I shook my head. There is no rule. It's just tradition. His voice dropped into a growl so low it seemed to vibrate through the floor. Tradition does not excuse cruelty. I stared into the bowl, terrified of the memories teasing the edges of my mind. You don't have to tell me everything at once, he said, softer now. But don't lie to me. Don't hide. Something in his tone unlocked a door I had kept bolted for years. So I let the words out slowly. They used to take my plate, I whispered. Warriors. Sometimes servants. Anyone stronger. Which is everyone. His breathing changed. Sharp, controlled, dangerous. I continued quietly. It started when I was little. If I took too long in line, they pushed me out. If I reached for the wrong dish, they slapped my hand away. If the hall was crowded, I stood in the back until everything was gone. He didn't move. They told me Omegas eat last because we contribute least. Roran's knuckles turned white. I learned to accept it, I murmured. It was easier than fighting and losing. Silence. A trembling, terrifying silence. His wolf pushed against the air, hot and furious, pressing into my senses like a roaring beast barely contained. Finally, he spoke, quiet, but with a depth that shook me. No one in my kingdom goes hungry. His voice was low, dangerous, almost broken. No one. I swallowed hard. I know you didn't mean for... His hand slammed down on the table, not in anger at me, but at the world that shaped me this way. I failed you. The words stunned me. You didn't even know I existed, I whispered. I should have, he said fiercely. I should know every wolf in my lands, every hunger, every bruise, every injustice. He leaned forward, his hands, those massive, battle-scarred hands, shaking ever so slightly. I should have seen you. My breath caught, not because of the guilt in his voice, but because it was real, raw, unfiltered, human underneath the cold king everyone feared. I had never seen a ruler apologize, and never to someone like me. I lifted the spoon again, trying to keep my composure, but Roran reached forward and gently, so gently, took the bowl from my trembling hands, setting it aside before lifting my chin with 2 fingers. His touch had no claim in it, no dominance, just care. You will never starve again, he said quietly. I felt it then, the fragile thread stretching between us, the bond neither of us fully understood, the one his wolf had already accepted before his mind caught up. My pulse quickened. I don't want to be a burden, I whispered. His eyes softened, just enough to make my heart twist. You're not, he murmured. Not to me. Something warm unfurled in my chest. Something terrifying, something impossible, something like belonging. For the first time in my life, someone saw my hunger. Not as weakness, but as something worth healing. And for the first time in his life, the Alpha King looked at someone not as a subject, but as something he could not bear to lose. Night in the palace was supposed to be quiet. It never truly slept. Wolves patrolled, fires burned in the watchtowers, the corridors hummed with distant footsteps. But in Roran's chambers, there was a strange peace, a heavy stillness, a protective warmth I couldn't explain. But peace is fragile, and mine shattered in an instant. The warning horn ripped through the night. 3 sharp blasts, the sound vibrating through the stone walls like a physical shock. I jolted upright from where I sat curled against the pillows, heart slamming into my throat. Roran was already moving. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed his sword from the wall, and threw open the balcony doors. Wind poured in, carrying scents so pungent they burned. Smoke, blood, rogue wolves. Lots of them. His eyes glowed silver at the sight. Roran? My voice cracked. He didn't answer immediately. He was too busy listening, every muscle in his body tense, his wolf pushing to the surface so violently the air thickened with it. Then he turned to me, voice low and lethal. "Stay behind me." My hands shook. I wasn't even standing. My legs had gone numb from sheer panic. "What's happening?" "Rogues breached the outer wall." "Why?" His jaw tightened. "Because they think there is a moon-blessed Omega inside this palace." My blood ran cold. Moon-blessed. Me. "They're here for—" "Yes." His gaze locked onto mine. "You." The terror that hit me was so sharp it took the air from my lungs. My fingers dug into the sheets. Cold swept up my spine. "Roran, I can't— I'm not— I can't fight." "You don't have to." A snarl rumbled through him, deep, primal, vibrating through the stone beneath us. "They don't touch you." The promise hung in the air like a vow carved into fate itself. I tried to stand, but my knees buckled. Roran crossed the space instantly and caught my arms, steadying me with hands hot from adrenaline. "You're shaking," he murmured, voice softer but no less intense. "They're coming for me," I whispered. His grip tightened. "Not while I live." Before I could respond, a thunderous crash shook the palace. Another wall breaking, closer this time, shouting, howls, steel clashing with claws. Roran moved with terrifying speed. He shoved a chair against the door, then swept his cloak from the bedpost and draped it around my shoulders. His scent enveloped me instantly, pine and storm wind and something ancient. And for the first time, instead of overwhelming me, it anchored me. He pressed his palm to the back of my neck, thumb brushing my skin. The touch sent a shiver through me, not of fear, but of something warmer, deeper. "Listen to me," he said softly, urgently. "My wolf will not let anything happen to you. Neither will I." Another crash, this time just outside the hallway. My breath caught. Roran's eyes flicked to the door, pupils blown wide, his wolf pushing so hard I saw the faint outline of fangs pressing against his skin. "Stay behind me," he repeated, stepping forward to shield me completely. Voices rose beyond the door. "She's in there. Find the moon blessed. Kill the king if you must. Take the girl." My stomach twisted. Sweat chilled my palms. But Roran, he didn't flinch. He simply lowered into a fighting stance, sword angled down, muscles coiled and ready to strike. The door shook under a violent hit. Dust fell from the hinges. Roran growled, a sound so feral it silenced the hallway for a heartbeat. "Come," he murmured, "and meet your death." I pressed a hand against his back without thinking. He froze for half a second, not from discomfort, but from something more primitive, more instinctual. Then he shifted his stance just enough to angle his body between me and every possible threat. Another crash. The hinges bent. "Roran," I whispered, "what if they break through?" His response was immediate. "Then they will die." The certainty in his voice shook me. Not arrogance, not confidence, just truth. He would kill for me. He would die for me. The door finally gave way, splintering inward as rogue wolves burst into the chamber with wild eyes and blood-matted fur. I screamed. But Roran was already moving. He launched forward in a blur of shadow and silver eyes, sword sweeping through the air with a sound that stole my breath. The first rogue fell before it even registered he'd been hit. The second lunged. Roran shoved me behind him with one arm and tore the wolf from midair with the other, slamming it into the wall. The third stumbled back the moment he scented me, as if my presence burned him. "The moon blessed," he choked. Roran decapitated him before he could finish the sentence. Blood splattered across Roran's armor. Not a drop touched me. It was a massacre, violent, brutal, breathtaking. When the last rogue collapsed, silence crashed into the room, heavy and ringing. Roran turned to me slowly, His chest heaved, his eyes glowed, his wolf still snarled through his breath. But when he looked at me, everything in him softened. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head, tears gathering. "No, because of you." He exhaled shakily and stepped closer. When his hands touched my face, gentle despite the blood still dripping from them, I leaned into his palms without thinking. His voice dropped to a murmur that felt like a vow. "They will never touch you, Ariel." And for the first time in my life, terror didn't drown me, because I knew I wasn't facing the world alone. I had a wall, a protector, a king, and his wolf would burn the world before letting harm reach me. I didn't realize it was happening at first. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel divine. I felt terrified, my back pressed to the wall, breath trembling, legs weak as the echoes of battle still vibrated through the chamber. Roran stood between me and the fallen rogues, sword dripping, chest heaving, eyes still glowing silver. His wolf was so close to the surface the air hummed with the weight of it. But then, a warmth flickered beneath my skin, a strange pulsing light blooming from inside me. At first, I thought it was adrenaline, or shock, or maybe I was fainting again. But Roran turned sharply, eyes widening with something I'd never seen in him before: fear, awe, recognition. "Ariel," he whispered. His voice wasn't a command, wasn't a warning. It was a prayer. What?" I stammered. "Your skin." I looked down and froze. A faint silver glow shimmered across my collarbone, soft, pulsing like moonlight trapped under my skin. It spread slowly, curling into intricate patterns that moved with my breath. A symbol, a mark. "No," I whispered. "No, this can't." But it wasn't stopping. The glow deepened, brightened, thrummed. My entire body felt like it was humming, alive with something ancient, something older than the palace, older than the kingdom, older than me. Roran didn't move closer, not out of fear, but out of respect. His eyes flicked to the doorway as footsteps pounded down the hall. Elder Myrus appeared, breathless, staff glowing with protective runes. The moment he saw me, his mouth parted. And then, he dropped to his knees. Not to Roran, to me. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Elder, what are you doing?" I gasped. He bowed his head so low his forehead touched the floor. "She is the moon blessed," he whispered. The title vibrated through the room like a thunder strike. My throat tightened. "No," I whispered. "No, you're wrong. I'm nothing. Just an omega." "Look at your mark," he said softly. "Look at what your wolf reveals." My wolf. The one everyone said I didn't have. The one they mocked. The one that never shifted. My fingers hovered over the glowing patterns on my collarbone, terrified to touch them, terrified they might disappear. But the moment my skin brushed the light, something in me uncoiled. Not violently, not loudly, but softly, warmly, like a long-sleeping creature stretching its limbs in recognition of the world. My wolf wasn't gone. It was sleeping, dormant, waiting. "Moon blessed," Roran murmured, awe layering his voice. "I thought the bloodline was extinct." "It was not extinct," Elder Myrus corrected, lifting his gaze to me with reverence. "It was hidden, protected, waiting for the moment the kingdom needed her." I shook my head. "No, you don't understand. I've never shifted. I've never felt anything." "You were never meant to shift early," Myrus said. "Moon-blessed wolves awaken only when fate demands it, when the kingdom is in danger, when prophecy stirs." A shiver rippled through me. The silver glow pulsed in time with my heartbeat. "But I'm not," my voice cracked. "I'm not strong. I'm not chosen. I'm just—" Roran stepped forward, slowly like approaching something sacred. You are not just anything, he said quietly. His wolf glow flickered in his eyes, softening the storm inside him. You are glowing with ancient power, he murmured. My wolf felt it the moment he caught you. My vision blurred. He felt me, while I thought I was invisible? Elder Myris rose slightly, staff glowing brighter. The moonmark blooms only for one destined to crown or destroy. Her wolf is divine, my king. I stumbled back, overwhelmed. Divine? I breathed. No, I'm weak. The silver light surged, not painfully but surely, like it was answering my denial. Myris nodded. Your wolf disagrees. I pressed a hand to my chest, swallowing hard. Everything I'd known about myself, every weakness, every humiliation, every moment of being overlooked and dismissed, shifted, transformed. Roran stepped closer, but his movements were careful, deliberate, as if touching me too quickly might shatter the moment. He brushed a knuckle over the glowing mark. I shivered. This is who you are, he whispered. Not the girl they starved, not the one they mocked. His touch drifted lower. But the wolf destiny hid until now. My breath trembled. I didn't understand how any of this could be true, but the silver light on my skin felt undeniably real, alive, ancient, me. I lifted my gaze to Roran. Am I supposed to accept this? I whispered. His answer was quiet, steady. You don't have to accept anything tonight, he said. You only have to breathe. Then, for now, let it be enough that your wolf woke up. My chest tightened. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt before. Not insignificance, not weakness, not fear, but the soft, terrifying beginning of impossible truth. I had never stood before the entire court before. Never stood before anyone, really. Most of my life had been spent behind others, behind warriors, behind nobles, behind omegas who were stronger or louder or simply not me. But now I stood at the center of the moon court, my heart pounding hard enough to bruise bone, my palms shaking at my sides. All eyes were on me, not with mockery, not with dismissal, not with annoyance, but with something far heavier: fear, curiosity, reckoning. The moonmark pulsed faintly across my collarbone, soft silver waves spreading beneath my skin like living moonlight. Every pulse vibrated through the hall, brushing the air like a whispered warning. I wanted to hide. Instead, I stood straighter. Because Roran stood beside me, tall, furious, unmoving, my king, my accidental protector. The wolf who caught me before I touched the ground. His stare swept across the nobles gathered at the dais, cold, unflinching, lethal. Bring them forward, he commanded. Warriors dragged the accused nobles into the light, 3 of them, all dressed in ceremonial robes, all familiar to me in a way that made my stomach twist. They were the ones who laughed when I was assigned the scraps from the kitchens, the ones who sneered when I trembled during training drills, the ones who told the cooks, Omegas eat last, and last meant barely, if at all. I swallowed hard. One of them, Lord Varin, met my gaze and smirked. You fainted, little mouse, he murmured. Not our fault, your body is defective. Roran was on him in a heartbeat, not physically, but his power surged so violently the air cracked. Speak again, he growled, and I will rip out your tongue before passing judgment. Varin paled. Good, he should. Roran turned to the court. These nobles stand accused of multiple crimes. A warrior unrolled a parchment. Charges, he declared, voice ringing across the hall. Cruelty toward an Omega. Sabotage of Omega health. Deliberate deprivation of food. And the planning of her quiet death. Whispers swept the hall like a gust of icy wind. My knees weakened. Quiet death. They wanted me gone. Not just overlooked, not just starved, eliminated. I felt the moonmark react, not with pain, but with a deep, resonant anger that wasn't mine. It glowed brighter, casting faint silver light across the marble. The court stepped back instinctively. Even Roran looked at me, not in fear, but in acknowledgement. "This is what you awakened," he murmured, voice low enough only I could hear. "Your wolf is responding to threat." "I don't know how to stop it," I whispered back. "You don't need to." He stepped forward, raising his voice again. "Let the accused speak." Lord Varen lifted his chin. "She is weak. She should never have been part of the ceremony. Her fainting made us all look foolish." "So you starved her?" Roran's voice thundered. "You deprived her of basic needs?" "She's an Omega," another noble snarled. "That's how it's always been." Wrong answer. The court gasped as Roran moved, fast, lethal, the shift flickering in his eyes. "Old laws," he hissed, "do not excuse cruelty." His power thrummed, shaking dust from the rafters. I should have felt comforted. But instead, I trembled harder, because the nobles weren't just defending themselves. They were defending a system built on people like me, staying small, staying weak, staying hungry. And in that moment, something in me broke. "I want to speak," I said, voice thin but steady. The hall went silent. Even Roran looked at me with surprise. I stepped forward. My knees almost buckled, but the moonmark flared again, supporting me, steadying me. "I didn't faint because I was worthless," I said softly. "I fainted because I hadn't eaten, because they made sure of it." Every eye fixed on me. I tried to hide it. I tried to bear it. But I know what they whispered. I turned toward the nobles. "You said I should disappear. You said Omegas like me were better off dead." One of them snarled and lunged, but didn't reach me, because the moonmark exploded in light. Silver flames spiraled outward, bright and blinding. The noble collapsed to his knees, howling as if hit by divine force. The entire hall recoiled. Even I gasped, stumbling as the light slowly faded. Roran caught my arm, steadying me. His voice was soft but carried through the hall like a blade. "The moon herself has spoken." Then, in full Alpha King command, he gave the verdict. "For cruelty, sabotage, and intent to commit murder against a moon-blessed wolf." He paused, eyes burning. "There is only one sentence." The nobles collapsed in terror. The entire court bowed, not to Roran, to me. And the moonmark kept glowing. Soft, silver, unstoppable. I felt the palace quiet before I heard it. Silence, thick as winter fog, settled over the moon terrace where Roran had led me. The air tasted of pine and cold stars, the world washed silver by the full moon. I stood with my hands curled into the railing, trying to breathe through the storm in my chest. The moonmark still tingled on my skin, faint pulses of warmth anchoring me to a truth I hadn't accepted yet. I wasn't weak. I wasn't wolfless. I wasn't no one. But the weight of that truth pressed so heavy that I found myself trembling again. Roran didn't speak at first. He stood a few steps behind me, as if afraid that getting too close would only overwhelm me more, not with danger, but with the sheer gravity of him, the Alpha King of Moonvale, the wolf who terrified armies, the ruler whose scent still clung to my lungs like a second heartbeat. And now he was silent. It scared me more than his roar ever had. Finally, he exhaled, a sound half snarl, half confession. "Ariel." My name hit the air like a vow. I turned slowly. His eyes glowed, storm gold, conflicted, burning. Not with anger, not with rage, but something far more dangerous, something raw. "When you fainted," he began, voice rough, "I felt my wolf tear at me from the inside." I swallowed. He stepped closer. Impossible closeness. The pack was shouting. Warriors were moving, and still, the only thing I could see was you falling. My heart twisted painfully, his jaw flexed. I didn't think. I didn't choose. My body moved before I could command it. He dragged a hand over his face, suddenly looking less like an untouchable alpha king and more like a man stripped bare by truth. "When I caught you," he said softly, "something in me broke." The world stilled. My breath hitched. His voice dropped to a near whisper. "And when you woke in my bed?" He shook his head as if the memory was too much. I knew. He took another step. I could feel the heat pouring off him. "I knew," he said again, quieter, deeper, "that you were not leaving my life, not my halls, not my scent, not my side." The confession settled over me like warm dusk, heavy and gentle and terrifying. "Roran," I whispered, but my voice shook. His gaze sharpened on the sound of his name falling from my lips. He closed the distance between us in 2 steps, and then stopped just close enough that I could feel the rise and fall of his breath. "I brought you here," he murmured, "so I could say this without a court watching, without guards listening, without duty forcing me to hide behind a crown." He lowered his head slightly, golden eyes locking fully onto mine. "I could not let you go," he said. "Not then, not now, not ever." I felt the world tilt. The air thickened, humming with the bond neither of us wanted to name. My wolf, hidden, dormant, divine, stirred beneath my skin in recognition. He wasn't marking me with words. He wasn't claiming me as a possession. He was surrendering. The most powerful wolf in the kingdom was standing before me, walls fallen, armor cracked, heart exposed. His voice lowered into something hoarse and devastating. "You fainted because they starved you, because they hurt you." His hand curled into a fist at his side. "And I wasn't there. I failed you before I knew I was meant to protect you." Tears burned behind my eyes. My voice came out small. "Roran, I never wanted to be a burden." His reaction was immediate, like lightning cracking through him. "You could never be a burden," he growled. But the sound shook with emotion, not anger. "The moment my wolf scented you, really scented you, it was over. My instincts locked onto you so violently I nearly shifted in the ceremony." He exhaled shakily. "The wolf in me kneels for no one," he whispered. "No king, no elder, no god." A pause. "But he kneels for you." My breath left me entirely. Not a metaphor, not a soft sentiment. Roran's wolf, the force that ruled a kingdom, was kneeling internally, instinctively, irrevocably. He lowered his forehead to mine. His voice was just air now, warm and trembling. "Don't ask me to let you go. I can't. I won't." Something inside me broke open, not with fear, but with recognition. Belonging, bonding, home. When I finally whispered, "I'm not leaving," he inhaled sharply, like those words were the first breath he'd taken all night. The bond didn't snap into place. It settled. Soft, inevitable, unshakable. And for the first time, nothing about it scared me. I had never stood under the full moon without feeling small. Tonight, I stood beneath it trembling for a different reason entirely. The silver glow felt alive, like it was watching me, waiting for something only I could give. Waiting for me to stop being afraid. Waiting for me to step into whatever fate had been whispering since the moment I fainted in that cursed ceremony. Roran stood beside me, silent but steady as a heartbeat. His presence wasn't overwhelming tonight. It wasn't suffocating or shadowed by authority. It felt like an anchor, grounding me as the sky pulled at my bones. "Ariel," he whispered, voice softened by something almost reverent. "Your wolf has been waiting a long time. Don't fight her." My throat tightened. "I don't know how," I whispered back. He stepped behind me, close enough that his warmth pressed through my spine, but not touching. Not unless I moved first. Roran had learned my flinches, my hesitations, the fragile pieces I still carried, and he offered his presence without trapping me in it. "You don't need to know," he murmured. "Just trust the pull. Trust what's waking in you." My breath trembled. The moon mark on my collarbone pulsed. Soft silver, then bright, then blinding. A heat bloomed beneath my skin, spreading, crawling, claiming every fragile part of me. I gasped, clutching my chest as the world tilted. "It's starting," Roran said behind me, voice shaking with awe he didn't bother hiding. Pain didn't hit me, not the way the stories described, not the way Omegas were warned it would feel. Bones breaking, skin tearing, screams swallowed by helplessness. This felt holy, as if every piece of me had been waiting to realign itself. My knees buckled. Roran caught me, but only to steady, never to restrain. His hands hovered on my arms, barely touching. "Let go," he whispered. "I'm here. I'm right here." The moon pulsed. The light arched downward like a silver tide, spilling over my shoulders, washing over my skin. The pain wasn't agony. It was pressure, intensity, like the moonlight was pouring into me faster than I could contain it. My vision whited out. Something inside me roared, not in fear, not in anger, but in release. The ground surged up and away. My clothes vanished into the glow. My bones rearranged in a single fluid wave, not breaking but unfolding. My heart thundered once, twice, and then I was no longer standing on two legs. I was more. When the light faded, I opened my eyes. But they weren't human eyes. I saw everything in silver and shadow and living threads of scent spiraling through the air. I felt the earth breathing beneath my paws. I felt the moon humming in my veins. And when I turned my head, Roran was kneeling. Not because he'd been pushed. Not because tradition demanded it. Not because an alpha king bows to spectacle. He was kneeling because he was looking at me. At the silver wolf towering over him, larger than any alpha, glowing with light that didn't seem to end at my fur but spilled into the air. His voice barely made it out of his throat. "Ariel, you're—" he swallowed. "You're magnificent." The pack approached slowly from the clearing, warriors and nobles alike silenced into disbelief. And then, one by one, knees hit the grass. The wolves bowed, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because they felt it. The divine thread that curled around me, the undeniable pulse of moon-blessed power radiating through every breath I took. I padded forward, uncertain for a heartbeat, then lifted my head toward the moon. A howl tore from my throat. Silver light exploded across the clearing. Wolves dropped lower. Some gasped. Some cried out. Some whispered prayers that were barely more than breaths. My howl carried truth. I was not weak. I was not wolfless. I was not meant for the shadows that swallowed me for 19 years. I was born for this. Born to rise when the kingdom needed me. Born to transform under moonlight that loved me. Born to be the wolf fate had hidden until the moment the world cracked open and demanded I step through. When my howl faded, Roran stood. Not to command me, not to control me, to offer his hand, palm up, fingers open, an oath without words, a promise without pressure. "Come back to me." My wolf pressed her nose into his palm. The bond pulsed. Alive, ancient, inevitable. And the kingdom bowed again. I never expected the world to feel small beneath my paws. But after my first shift, after standing in a silver form I never believed I had, the earth itself felt quieter around me. Steady, certain, like it recognized me in a way I had never recognized myself. When the light faded and my body folded back into its human shape, I collapsed into the cool grass, trembling with the aftershocks of power still humming under my skin. My breath came in sharp pulls. My heartbeat drummed like a war drum in my ears. Roran was there instantly, kneeling, hands framing my face, eyes wild with something that bordered on reverence. Ariel, he breathed, like my name was the only anchor he had left. His thumb traced my cheekbone, careful, slow, as if I would break if he touched too hard. And maybe I would have, emotionally, because the way he looked at me wasn't how kings looked at omegas. It was how fate looked at inevitabilities. I shivered at the intensity. His scent, storm wind, pine resin, and molten gold, wrapped around me. I had grown familiar with it these past days, but now it hit me like something deeper, something that curled under my ribs and melted along my spine. My wolf stirred, not in confusion, in recognition. Roran inhaled sharply. "You feel it too," he whispered. I opened my eyes fully, and everything in his expression changed. The Alpha King was gone, the warrior was gone, only the man remained. A man whose wolf was standing right beneath his skin, trembling with need. "Ariel." His voice was rough, stripped of command. "I need permission." It took me a moment to understand. Then his meaning hit me like lightning. He wasn't asking to claim me as an Omega. He wasn't asking to bind me as a subordinate. He was asking if he could mark me as moon-chosen, his equal, his fated, the one destiny had placed in front of him with silver hands. My heart stuttered. "Why me?" I whispered, voice weak but certain. His breath left him on a low exhale. "Because from the moment you fell," he said, "my wolf rose." He brushed a stray piece of hair from my face. "Because you shifted into a creature of moonfire." Another pause. "Because the bond didn't just pull me toward you, it knelt me." I felt my pulse pounding beneath my skin. My throat went tight. Tears burned behind my eyes, not from fear, but from being seen after a lifetime of feeling invisible. "You don't have to mark me," I said softly. His jaw clenched, not in anger but in pain. "I know," he said. "That's why I'm asking." No king asked. No alpha asked. No wolf asked. They took. They claimed. They decided. But he wanted the word from my lips. Yes. Or no. My wolf rose, brushing the inside of my skin like silver smoke. Not fear. Recognition. Hunger. Home. I swallowed hard. "I want it," I whispered. "I want you." The sound he made cracked something inside both of us. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to mine. His hands trembled slightly. Roran Vale, feared across kingdoms, trembling because of me. "Then tell me to claim you," he whispered hoarsely. My voice barely left my mouth. "Claim me." His control shattered. He lowered his head to the crook of my neck, inhaling deeply, once, twice, like he was memorizing the shape of my soul through scent alone. Then his fangs grazed my skin. Not piercing, not yet. Just a promise. My breath caught. My fingers curled into his shirt, holding him there. His grip tightened on my hip, grounding us both as the bond spiraled through the air like a silver thread weaving us together. "Say it again," he rasped, voice shaking. "I'm yours," I whispered. "Roran, I'm yours." The growl he let out vibrated through my bones. His teeth sank gently into my neck, not to wound, not to dominate, but to anchor. The mark burned with heat, then cooled with moonlight. A pulse surged between us, ancient, binding, sacred. The scent claim. Royal, fated, moon-blessed. My breath broke into a gasp as the bond sealed. Warmth flooded my chest, spreading into my limbs, my throat, my heartbeat. Roran's scent wrapped around mine until our wolves intertwined, their instincts melting into each other like two halves of something long separated. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes glowed gold, softer than I had ever seen. "You are not my Omega," he said quietly, reverently. "You are my moon chosen." My wolf purred with contentment, belonging, surrender, transformation. And when he kissed me, slow, deep, claiming, it felt like the moon itself bowed. The moon court had never been this silent. The great hall, usually roaring with dominance and political tension, felt carved out of pure stillness, as if even the air held its breath. Hundreds of wolves filled the chamber, warriors in dark leathers, nobles draped in silver, elders hunched beneath ancient crests. Their eyes burned into me as I stood beside Roran on the raised dais. My heart thudded so hard I thought the whole hall could hear it. My hands trembled, but not in fear. Not anymore. The moonmark still shimmered faintly at the base of my throat. Behind me, moonlight spilled through the vast skylight, falling over my shoulders in a silver cascade, soft, warm, familiar. It felt like a blessing, a promise. Roran didn't speak yet. He stood tall at my side, radiating a calm, possessive pride that made my chest tighten. His palm brushed mine, barely a whisper of touch, but the bond between us flared, grounding me, anchoring me to something unshakable. At last he stepped forward. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder made of silk. "Before this court," he said, "you judged her." A murmur rippled across the wolves, unease skittering like sparks on stone. "You dismissed her," he continued, eyes sweeping across the nobles who had sneered at me, mocked me, starved me. "You starved her. You disrespected her. You condemned her without knowing who, what, she truly was." Shame flickered in a few gazes, but pride kept most faces rigid. Roran's jaw tightened. "And now," he said, voice growing colder, stronger, "you will witness the truth." He turned toward me. My breath caught. His hand lifted, slow, reverent, before settling over the place he'd marked me. Heat surged beneath my skin, silver light blooming outward like a soft halo. Gasps echoed through the chamber. "She bears the moon mark," he declared, "the same crest the moon-blessed queen carried generations ago." Wolves stiffened. Some trembled. Roran's voice deepened to something raw and proud. "The Omega you dismissed." His hand slid down to lace his fingers with mine. "Is the queen, the moon, returned to me." A sound caught in my throat. I knew he meant every word. Not for politics, not for spectacle, but because fate had carved this path long before either of us understood it. My wolf rose beneath my skin, brushing the edges of my consciousness with gentle insistence. "Stand tall," she whispered. "You are not prey. You are the moon's chosen." So I lifted my chin. I let the silver pulse spread from my mark, glowing across my skin in shimmering waves. Light gathered around me like breath, like something alive, an aura echoing the divine wolf I'd shifted into beneath the full moon. Wolves gasped. Some stepped back. Some pressed hands to their hearts. But no one looked away. The power didn't frighten me this time. It fit. For the first time in my life, I fit. Roran moved to stand slightly behind me, not overshadowing, not controlling, but offering his presence like a shield of quiet loyalty. His voice lowered, but every wolf heard it. "Bow," he commanded. The nobles resisted first, chin high, pride rigid, jaws locked in disbelief. Then the warriors, torn between loyalty and tradition. Then the elders, ancient eyes wide with ancient fear. But Roran's next words cut through all hesitation. "She is my queen," he said, "and she is the moon's will." The hall shattered. Wolves dropped to their knees one after another, a wave of submission and reverence sweeping through the great chamber. Some bowed low, foreheads to stone. Others knelt with tears streaking their cheeks. Even the nobles, those who once laughed at my frailty, bowed with trembling limbs. The force of it almost knocked me breathless, not because they feared me, but because they finally saw me. A frail Omega, once starved and ignored, now wrapped in moonlight and standing at the side of a king who would burn the world to protect me. Roran leaned close, so close his words brushed my ear like a vow. "They bow to you," he murmured, "because you were never meant to kneel." Emotion surged up my throat, sharp, sweet, overwhelming, belonging, triumph, ascension. When I stepped forward and raised my head toward the moonlit ceiling, the silver glow brightened until the whole hall shimmered, and the pack, the entire kingdom, bowed deeper. A coronation not born of tradition, not born of bloodline, but born of destiny. I was no longer the weakest Omega. I was their moon queen. Sometimes I still think about the moment everything changed, not the moment I shifted into moonlit silver, not the moment Roran marked me, binding our scents like threads of destiny, not even the moment the entire pack bowed, accepting me as the queen none of us ever imagined. No, it all began with the faint. That humiliating, terrifying collapse in front of the entire pack was the single breath that opened the door to everything I am now. And now, months later, I rest against Roran's chest, wrapped in his warmth and the quiet hum of our bond, realizing that the moment I thought was my greatest shame was actually my rebirth. The moonlight spills through the balcony, washing my skin in soft silver. It glows faintly across the moon mark on my collarbone, the mark that once shocked me into silence, and now feels like an old friend whispering, "You were always meant for more." Roran tightens his arms around me, his breath ghosting over the top of my head. "Ariel," he murmurs, half asleep, half attentive the way only a king with an overprotective wolf can be. "Yes?" I whisper. His chin brushes my hair. "You're glowing again." I smile against his chest. "It's just the moonlight." "No." His voice softens into something that belongs only to me. "It's you." I should be used to hearing him say things like that. I should be used to how gently he touches me now, how reverent he is, how he still reacts as if I might drift away if he loosens his hold. But it hits me every time, warm and dizzying, filling the parts of me I once hid. Outside, the pack gathers in the courtyard for the monthly moon blessing. Families, pups, warriors, elders, all of them lifting their faces toward the night. Some glance up at our balcony, where the curtains flutter in the breeze. I hear the whispers. "She fainted before us," and woke in the king's bed as fate intended. The moon-blessed queen. The moment she collapsed, destiny caught her. Months ago, those same voices mocked me, called me weak, invisible, useless. Now their words feel like an old story from another lifetime, because I remember the truth more clearly than anyone else. I didn't wake in the Alpha King's bed because I was special. I woke there because my wolf reached for the one soul she recognized in a world that had forgotten me. Roran presses a kiss to my temple, as if sensing the turn of my thoughts. "Do you regret any of it?" he asks quietly. I shake my head, shifting slightly so I can look up at him. His eyes, storm gold and unwavering, meet mine with open vulnerability, the same honesty he offered the night he admitted he could never let me go. "No," I breathe. "Not even the fainting." He huffs a soft laugh. "I'll never forget that moment." "I will?" I tease lightly. "I wasn't conscious for half of it." His hand rises, fingers brushing the mark he placed on my neck, the scent claim that fused our wolves together. I will remember it for you then, he murmurs. The very instant you fell, my wolf rose, and I realized I'd lived my whole life asleep until I smelled your fear. My chest tightens. He tilts my chin up gently. Ariel, what happened that day was not weakness. I rest my hand over his heart, feeling the steady thrum beneath my palm. I know, I whisper, and I do. I know it in the way my wolf hums beneath my skin, content and powerful. I know it in the way the kingdom bows in respect rather than pity. I know it in the way Rorn's scent wraps around mine, warm and absolute. I know it in the way the moon seems to glow brightest when I lift my gaze to her. Because that collapse, the moment that humiliated me before the entire pack, wasn't a failure of my body. It was destiny catching up to me, stopping me, grabbing me by both hands and saying, now. If I hadn't fainted, Rorn would have stayed behind his walls. The healers wouldn't have seen the silver in my blood. Elder Myris wouldn't have sensed the ancient power inside me. No one would have known about the dormant divine wolf rising beneath my fragile skin. I never would have shifted. I never would have risen. I never would have become what I was meant to be. Rorn kisses my forehead again, soft, grounding, a promise written against my skin. Rest, my queen, he murmurs. The moon has you. And for the first time in my life, I believe it. Not as a frightened Omega, not as a girl collapsing under jeers and hunger, but as the woman fate shaped from the moment I touched the king's arms. I close my eyes. I rest not because I am weak, but because I have risen. The girl who fainted is the queen who answered destiny.